All right, I'm going to call the Finance Committee meeting of Monday, May 9th, 2016 to order. Main thing on the agenda for tonight is to go over our annual and special town meeting warrants and recommendations and any questions. Make sure everybody's on the same page going into Wednesday night. I'm going to let, Tim, if you want to take it from there and issues or questions or things that you have.
Yeah, I had, a couple of things I wanted to bring up. The school transportation, which we can get to, and I just wanted to talk about Norfolk County, because there will be a motion for that, and we can talk about, potential funding sources. I realize you guys voted it down, but I want to at least have the conversation.
We didn't vote it down, we didn't fail to vote it in.
Fail to support a motion to fund it from a stated funding source.
Okay. Stickler on that.
Okay. But I wanted to go over your recommendations here.
Yes, please.
And let's see, where did I have a question? Starting with the annual town meeting.
Yes, sir.
Article 11 and 12. So, Article 11, you and I kind of talked about this offline afterwards. I don't know if in the past the amount that you funded was always equal to the amount you were spending. Not sure, but in this case, we're transferring an amount into the trust fund that is actually, doesn't reconcile, it's a different amount than what we need to spend in the subsequent article. So, I was thinking that one of the articles should be to transfer that money in from sale of land, the $248,000, which you folks voted to support. And then the next article would be to actually approve the purchase and lease for the actual town, for the capital improvement budget. So I have, if I can read Article 11, as I have the motion right now, I move that the town transfer the sum of $248,425 from sale of town-owned land, account 2900048111-000, said sum to be added to the capital improvement trust fund.
Can you just confirm that it's 248,425?
248,425.
Okay. That's fine. I had it backwards.
Oh, you have what?
I had 245 instead of 425, but I trust that
No,
you would have verified.
It was
them.
8, yeah. I'll verify it.
No, I had 248,245. 248,245. Just flip that last two and the last four is what I had left from last week.
Okay, you had 245.
But I could have typed it in wrong, so that's. Yeah, and no, whatever.
We'll
check
make sure it's
before,
right.
yeah.
We'll make sure it's right.
And I think that our votes last week, that fits the intent of our votes. We merged into one article thinking that 11 would be no action and 12 would be moving the funds and these specific projects. So I don't foresee, I'll wait till Wednesday. We might have a bigger complement, and if we have to revote, we will, but I don't think it's.
So right
that's not
now,
opposed
what's going to
our-
be handed out, though.
It would be handed out as that.
Okay.
And then.
All right.
My motion was 244.
425, yeah. I think the 425 is right.
That was the motion.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
All right. So, and then the next article is the expenditure, which we have, I moved it, so this is Article 12. The motion is, I move the town raise and appropriate transfer from available funds, borrow otherwise provide a sum of $355,141 for the purchase or lease of capital items for fiscal year 2017, as recommended in the capital improvement report of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee.
Did
you say the funding source
We've
for
never
that?
quoted the money before in that. We always said, we've never quoted the amount that's being
No?
spent. Nope, just based on the capital improvement plan.
I don't think that there's anything.
I don't,
I kind of like saying the number of the total of the capital. And just hold on. And did you say the funding source also in that motion?
let's
To move
see.
from the capital trust fund to the projects, or?
I move town appropriate funds, otherwise, sum of, for the purchase lease of equipment recommend, no, I didn't. It's coming from the capital,
We should say from the capital trust fund.
it's coming from the capital, so you move it from there, you don't spend it right out of there.
So this is Article 12 that we're actually spending the money now, appropriating the money for specific projects.
Right.
Specific items. So we transfer from the capital trust fund to the specific projects. Yeah. Because otherwise, that motion, I think, kind of reads ambiguous right now that
We never listed money, we just said as recommended, and then the plan was available.
We will say, he was reading the actual motion that we made on town meeting floor. We, as a finance committee, we recommended last week to approve the plan. Which this is just the semantics of the motion that will be made.
Right.
So, and we'll have the plan handed out.
Yes.
Which I sent, I'm not sure if you distributed it, but I did send it to you for
I think is what
review.
we had. Right.
Yeah.
It'll be a handout for town meeting members. It should say from the trust fund, right?
But I don't think we have put that on it.
Yeah. Because
did.
Article 11, we're putting money into the trust fund, and then Article 12, money's transferring out of the trust fund into the capital plan itself. Into the specific projects.
So it's, I moved out of authorized transfer of 355 from, well, I just add from the capital
Trust fund.
improvement trust fund.
But does that limit them by putting 355?
As long as it matches what's written on the document, I don't think it's a problem.
But what if they want to approve other spending out of that capital trust fund?
They would have to come back to town meeting. So the only thing that
Whether
they
they have the
are,
money amount on there or not?
correct.
Thank you.
And I think,
Then okay.
yeah, and I
Yeah, so
think,
it matches, it
Yeah,
just
that-
matches, make it
All
clear.
right. Just making it more,
Yep.
okay,
and
transparent.
what could happen here, the only thing I could see happening, which would be on a positive note, would be if we get the grant for the IT, we're not gonna use all that 355.
But then you turn it back.
That's okay, we just turn it back in, yeah.
Then it goes back.
Right.
So I'm gonna add to that from just the 355, 141, which is the total on the capital plan, for the purchase, well, from the capital improvement trust fund for the purchase of lease or capital equipment fiscal year 2017.
Does that say as printed on the,
As recommended in the capital improvement report of the
Okay,
capital
perfect.
improvement planning committee.
There you go.
And we'll have.
that way the
copies.
specific projects and we know
Yeah.
what it's tied out to? I don't think we have more members than we did last week, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the same number.
Same number, yeah.
So,
No different seven. Paul and Mike weren't here last week.
yeah. And is there a pleasure of the committee to reopen those and to make our recommendations line up with the motions that are going to be read? It's probably clearer for town meeting members to walk in and see something and say, okay, this is what the finance committee recommends, and then they hear the motion exactly how it's sort of printed. So is there a motion to reconsider Article 11 and Article 12?
11 and 12.
11.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. So is there a motion to recommend $248,425 from the sale of land to be moved to the capital trust fund under Article 11?
That's the same motion, that's exactly what the motion was last week.
But it's under Article 11 instead of Article 12. That's the only
He
difference.
wants the funding on it.
Article 11, we had as no action.
Gotcha.
So it's the same thing we did last week, we're just putting it into Article 11 so it's cleaner for people.
Motion to move the 248, 425 from the sale of land to the capital improvement trust fund.
Second.
Any more discussion? All of those in favor of that? Okay. And then is there a motion for Article 12 to recommend the capital plan as has been presented to us?
Yeah. Do you want the dollar amount, 355, 141,
Sure, you can make that part of the motion.
to approve the capital improvement plan as presented by the capital improvement planning committee?
Second.
Any more discussion? All of those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay. So, is that anything else on the annual? I guess the one thing I just want to mention is in the budget, in the operating budget, the school transportation, since we're on the annual, stay on the annual. There's the question about the schools under one of the selectmen's budget, or when they had the selectmen's budget, I think it was $894,000 in the transportation line item. When we did our budget, and if you remember, our budget was our budget, numbers were different than the selectmen budget. We had $892,000 in the transportation line item. That's the budget that we've since voted and has gone out. Some members of the school committee are kind of concerned about, would like that $2,000 back. I don't think we need to open up the budget tonight and move money, but we'll kind of see how things shake out on Wednesday. And if there is a motion, then we'll make a plan to either support or not support it. But that's sort of,
When do you wanna just do it tonight, when we have more time, if you wanna discuss
The-
it?
my only concern about literally reopening our budget versus voting on a motion
Yeah, we already
is
printed
the
out.
budget's what's already printed, what everybody has.
I guess
The question is, if we have a funding source tonight that we said we wanted to, then we could recommend a motion tonight and leave it to the schools, or you have something?
I will say this, we have a copy of your budget, but the copies we haven't reproduced them yet.
We haven't reproduced them, but they have been published in terms of messages gone out on emails, it's on the website.
Okay.
So it's out there.
So in regards, we'll probably be a motion, we expect to be a motion on Wednesday to add $2,000. At this point, I would recommend I know we're not gonna vote on it now, I would plan on voting yes on that, because it's a simple, not a typo, it's a simple thing, and $2,000 is the biggest budget, who have also had the biggest cuts from what they requested, is the biggest, but I don't see it, I just think it's an easy say yes and give them the 2,000. I don't think it's worth it.
No, I don't have a funding source now, and I just.
No,
I-
my point is,
and what
we're
the-
gonna make discussion on Wednesday, we're saying, I'll vote for it. If
Yeah,
anybody
I
says
think
yes,
we'll-
let's say no.
My kind of take is wait till Wednesday and there's an actual motion. I don't know that $2,000, as you said, on the biggest budget is going to make
No,
a whole hill of beans, so I don't want to.
I don't wanna discuss it on,
Good one,
I want to discuss it on
good one we get out of
Wednesday.
that.
That's why if
good
there's a
way we get
motion,
out of that will be huge.
I don't think we would necessarily be opposed to it.
That's what I'm trying to get out, that we're probably gonna
It's
vote.
$2,000, it's,
So we'll
Find the
we'll
funding
have a
source.
motion, do you have a recommended funding source?
do we have it?
Do we want to move it from snow and ice, because we put extra in there?
Hold on, I just want to make sure the side of the table's heard. Sometimes we're a little louder.
I got it.
Usually. Any questions or thoughts on,
I agree.
don't.
$2,000 is not worth having a big discussion.
General funding source, I mean,
And we'll find it. If Snow and ice is fine.
No, it's fine, even though,
Snow and ice is fine.
the committee doesn't seem generally opposed to snow and ice, so if you want to draft something, and then we'll take it up on Wednesday officially. All right. Anything else on the annual town meeting? Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Not on the annual.
Okay. On to the special. I had two questions, and I don't know did you get our minutes from last week? I did. Can you tell me what the votes were on Article 8 of the special town meeting? That was for 10,720.
Can I just hold on to this? So it's not gonna want us to look at it.
I just have notes, that's all.
And then, the 30,000, which is Article 9,
6-1.
610.
Public safety. Oh, yeah. We put it.
610. And, okay, so I have votes for everything, okay.
What was 8 and 9, Kevin? I'm sorry.
8 and 9 were the
No,
30,
no, what were the votes? I'm sorry.
8 was 601, and 9 is 610.
Thank you.
And then we talked about the health insurance, you had a drag and drop issue.
Yes, I've since fixed that. And I might just keep it simple next year and forget about giving you the account numbers and just. No, it's when you, it's in Excel, when you drag and then you redo numbers and it adds and
It adds them.
51, 72, 73, 74. Yeah, I know.
yeah, it does it automatically to you.
$200 a day.
So you had Article 13 is the only article that doesn't have a funding source from the Finance Committee at this point and hasn't been voted in support of.
Right.
So is there a planned funding source, a thought, or?
Well, we're revisiting the health insurance. We think there might be some money there. And what about the
Reserve?
Finance Committee reserve?
Just to play out a couple scenarios, I think we kind of played them out ourselves last week, was if the reserve fund is used as a funding source and town meeting doesn't vote to support it, that precludes us from, at the 11th hour, backfilling it for if, we find out that there's some absolute reason that has to happen. There's no other option. Because we can't go against town meeting's will. If town meeting specifically votes not to use that as a funding source, we then can't backfill that as a funding source. So that would be my concern about using that fund. if it does get denied. But then there's the other side, well, if town meeting says don't fund it, I don't know that we would actually fund it anyway. But there could be some scenario where we're, forced to do it or some other reason. And I don't want to box us into a corner,
Well,
my concern.
never mind. Nope, I had something else, I was wrong. Annual and special, I'm confusing the two, never mind.
Yeah, so this is the special, which we would only have to pay by, which would be by July 15th, technically. We would have to have taken a vote if it does fail at town meeting.
Didn't before, when these articles came before us previously, didn't we have enough money for that included? What happened, did I miss? Did I
No,
miss?
last year we did a.
No, not last year, no. When the special town came along, we had funding sources for everything, and that 33,000 was included. So I'm curious as to why,
The
3 weeks
reserve-
ago.
Yep, the reserve fund was part of that pot.
All right,
The reserve fund was part of that, pot. And we left the reserve fund because it gives us more
all
flexibility.
right, I just remember.
The other option, if you're comfortable with using some of the reserve funds for something, you could just flip it around and use, flip health insurance and use the reserve fund for something else that should not be controversial. Or we can, let us kick around the health insurance.
It wasn't from, no, but it wasn't from the reserve fund.
It was, correct, there was also, the ambulance reserve fund was listed as a possible funding source in that,
Yep,
That was,
in the list of funding
that
sources.
was the 33,000.
But that was intended in,
For the
thought for
fire.
the fire.
That's right.
Which we then used.
So you could
But
do a
since one has
swap
other,
if you
another,
wanted to.
instead of using it for fire, we use unemployment and.
What is the cost of that again? Yes. See, I got it.
624.
33,624, right?
33,624.
I'd like to see, I'm not just not happy to go far until I see them come in front of us and show us what that 33,624 represents.
Well, I'll say this, I did, probably a year and a half ago now at this point, went out to Norfolk Aggie, sat in on a session with our attorneys and their attorneys, and went over not the details of their budget, like we would get from a Blue Hills per se, but the bigger picture of their budget and how they arrive at what their tuition rate is. And there is a formula, I don't necessarily agree with how they are arriving at that formula, but even using other alternative methods, you're gonna come pretty close to what their tuition rate is today.
Okay.
If you include different costs and allocate them differently. The concern, I think, is one is going forward, that there's no hard and fast, that formula isn't state-driven, they arrived at the formula, and somebody kind of checked off on it. But it's nothing to change them from making a different formula years from now, once we finally agree to it. So that's a concern we have. And then the second concern, obviously, is about the legality of our town being required to pay, and then the second one is, can we pay? And until this sort of is legally figured out, both of those, so those last two questions are sort of lingering. But in terms of their budget and presenting it, I think once our legal issue is done, I spoke with the superintendent at the time, and she said she was more than willing to come to the finance committee. Doesn't want to come to, dog and pony with every committee and every department and all that kind of stuff. But to come to the finance committee and talk about their budget on a high level, what's going on, what their things are. So I think that we will definitely take them up on that. I think that this year, kind of, with this stuff, they didn't want to go too far down a road because you do have legal issues and all of a sudden you start saying something or speaking out of turn, it can hurt their side or our side or confuse things.
And this article is to fund the 2016 payment.
Correct.
We paid 2015, if I remember correctly.
We've paid 2015 with
We
prejudice.
paid with prejudice, and we're paying 2017 with prejudice.
Correct.
Seems kind of
It's
silly.
in our budget right now to,
It just seems silly to me. Looking at it very simple, okay, we paid you that one, we paid you, but we're not paying, and it just seems, whatever the word is, I don't want to say disingenuous.
no, I think the only thing about it's the tuition payment isn't due until the end of the year. So even though we've got it in our budget, it's not going to be paid until the end of FY17, which would be May or June of next year. In theory, in that time, you would have some settlement. I think one could say that by not paying it now, it forces the issue, because it seems to,
But we won't have that money in there for next year. If, say the settlement goes against us, we've not put away $33,000 for 2016 next year if it goes against us, correct?
Correct.
everything reserved.
Right, and there's a possible liability out there
There's a possibility we're
for
not accounting for.
14, 13, 12, 11?
No, I think we paid
Well,
those.
no, we didn't,
No.
not the prior years. We
Not the prior
paid
years.
15.
So there's just
Yeah.
over six
There's-
figures.
There's a
possible
hundred,
liability.
about 120,000 outstanding, that's part of the negotiation.
So that could be an issue.
Yep.
Is there
So if we paid the 33,000 out of health insurance when they find it, with prejudice, and depending how this goes, we don't think, that 33,000 won't be part of the, whatever negotiations are ongoing, I don't wanna get into that. Either one way, we won't have to pay it, or in theory, whatever the negotiations go better towards us, whatever, how we say it, we may get some of it back, or that 33,000 can be used towards whatever the settlement is, and our settlement and our liability will be less. I just see paying it to keep it, it's not a good faith with prejudice, to ensure our students are getting, I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but there was some thought that maybe the students wouldn't be looked at as Holbrook isn't paying, if anything, even perception, to keep the perception out that we're willing to pay until this is resolved, to give our students the fair shot at getting in there and all that stuff, that there is no reason for our students not to be fairly treated, that we're not causing them to be unfairly treated in the application process. That's my theory. I don't see this holding back, there's one, we're not paying this 33 is going to do any good for us whatsoever. In your negotiations, in my opinion, and for our students, which is the most important part of this whole discussion, I just don't see the benefit of holding back this one payment. So I would like to vote again. I don't think we vote tonight because we don't have a funding source. A funding source, that's just my theories. I don't see the benefits, almost like a, no, so we're not paying you this. There's an ongoing negotiations, let's keep the good faith saying, with prejudice, and then as the chips lie, we can figure it out from that.
Just a couple of questions. Does anybody remember how the town meeting vote went? Was it overwhelming last year? I just can't remember. For 15.
town meeting didn't vote for 15?
Yeah, it was an article.
There was a discussion, I don't know if it was a motion or a discussion, because I remember students stood up.
Yeah, certain number of people stood up.
Or was it the finance
It was the
committee?
finance committee.
Yeah,
It was in
that's
the
right. It
transfer
wasn't.
we did.
No, there was, I don't know what
I do
happened.
There was a
remember.
discussion, there was a discussion in the budget.
About the
because
budget.
the Norfolk Aggie for FY16 was zero funded. So there was a question about that, and it was put to rest of, we're in negotiations, we're litigation and all this kind of
Money never
stuff.
voted town meeting.
And then, within the budget, it was a zero fund, that's when it came up. But then separately, there was an offer, because that's when they came back and said, we're not gonna let your students in. And the selectmen said, finance committee, please fund this, so that our students can go with prejudice while we're in these negotiations.
And I
Finance
would
committee.
expect, if it wasn't voted at town meeting, that we would be up against the same situation in June.
All right. Anything else we need to share to this discussion? I mean,
For the number that we have, did we get any support for that 33? Or you're just saying?
we got a letter that said what the tuition was, but
No.
we didn't receive a copy of their FY16 bill, but we didn't, I'll say this, I don't think we asked
Yeah,
for a
we do.
copy.
We have a PO or something that I know.
That's right, we got a letter with the tuition bill, but we didn't get a robust budget of, line item budget, or even a high-level budget of, this much on teachers and so on and so forth. But we didn't ask for it, so I can't say that they're holding things back.
And that's for this year, actually.
That's for FY16 now, and for FY17, but we had, it's a delicate, we don't want to step on toes on the other side of the administration.
But is that, I'm sorry, I wasn't here last week, but is that the reason why we voted that down again, that got voted down?
It wasn't
So-
voted down.
Not last
Voted
week.
down.
It wasn't,
Yeah, sorry.
it was a 3-2 vote, I believe.
It was a 3-3 vote, someone abstained.
3-2,
And I don't think, honestly, when we voted, I was surprised that
3-3,
it
it
was
was
voted
3-3.
down. Some people just didn't want to pay for it until I guess it was resolved, because we didn't have a bill. I don't remember, my recollection, there was a lot of conversation from this side of the room. And the other side, which was fine, the people, but I don't remember instead, they just, I'm not, then again, I'm saying they didn't have a lot of, I think they don't want to pay it till it's resolved, like, that's the best I can remember. I don't remember any big, long, that was just their thought at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
It wasn't,
I'm
it wasn't a fight, it was just, they just didn't want
It's,
to.
I think it's just a difference of opinion in terms of, we're not, the legislation, I think, is pretty clear. We're not required to pay. I don't like being held hostage as a town.
Right.
It's now gone on, we paid it last year. We don't have, it's a year later. We still don't have a settlement. if we pay this year and it's in our budget to pay next year, we're kind of giving up leverage in terms of they're getting the money. Yeah, there's this back money, but they're getting the money now, so what behooves them to come up with a fix, whether they're on their side or whatever. And then fundamentally, the law says the other side of the coin is by paying this, the town, if we are not obligated to pay, we can't pay bills just because we want to pay bills, just because we want to. And that's actually against the law. So there's a delicate balance there of paying this bill, and I understand there's a question about it, so that's why we're not breaking any law. I want to make sure clear about that. But that's a concern that, we're paying a bill that we're not legally obligated to pay, and all of the taxpayers that don't want to pay that bill could technically, make an issue out of it. So we want to make everybody happy and educate our kids, do what's right, do what's fair, but also do it within the bounds of the law. So I think that, we'll leave that discussion there. I don't think we need to keep beating that. We'll take it up on Wednesday again, if there's a funding source. I don't know that, there's the finance committee, if there isn't a different funding source, I think that if there was a motion that said use the reserve fund, I don't think the finance committee would be opposed to using that. I think there's enough funds in there right now that seems like to get us through the end of the year. The overtime accounts of the police and fire, we're backfilling those right now, so I don't foresee major issues. Hopefully in the next, couple of months there. So,
Yeah, you're still okay with?
So good.
Well, okay.
so using that
Pretty far along, that's all.
as a backstop.
So that's good to know. So it'll be purely based on whether you support it or not the funding source.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, like I say, ideally it'd be not the reserve funds, that way it just gives us some more flexibility, but if it has to be because the other accounts aren't there, then the other accounts aren't there. Make sense to everybody? Anything else on the annual or the special?
Yes, on the special, I think when you get down to Article 17, I actually think you did vote on that.
We did, what was Article, what is
It was the 10 to 2 Mass General Law to allow
Mass General,
restaurants.
We voted to accept that.
We accept.
I don't remember the vote count, but we
No, I didn't update my,
We voted to approve.
I agree. It was a 6-0-1 vote,
Yep. Is there one again?
Looks like it.
one abstaining.
Abstain.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And then we recommended accepting the streets, move the money from free cash to all of the various accounts. There is one thing that, and it's not for this fiscal year, for free cash. I think it's time to kind of relook at our free cash policy and update, not generally throw it away, but update it. One thing that I was just throwing out for discussion and taking it back and thinking about it was to update, instead of, we had three goals. One was to keep a minimum balance as free cash. 2 is to pay off prior year deficits. And then 3 was to generate a healthy and fiscally responsible stabilization fund reserves. Maybe modify that and grow the number a little bit of goals, but some of them have the same purpose. Keep minimum balance, pay off all prior year deficits. Those are the first 2. General stabilization, put 50% into general stabilization until we get to 10% of our operating budget. Maintain a capital stabilization budget of $400,000 set aside. Create a circuit breaker stabilization fund, as we've spoken about, and fund that at 10% until we get to the same as the prior year state aid circuit breaker. So whatever they got in the prior year, then that sort of caps it out, just like the $400,000 on the capital stabilization. Fully match our Chapter 90 funds to be put aside, whether it's used in that year or subsequent years, but to save that money for roads and sidewalks, again at 10%, and then fully fund our OPEB liability. And then number 8 goal is decrease the tax levy. So the way to sort of get there is the same that we did before for goal 1 and 2. Keep the 100,000 or 25%, whichever's greater, pay off the prior year deficits, and then whatever's left, take 50% of that for the general stabilization, 10% of that to the capital stabilization, 10% to the circuit breaker stabilization, 10% for road maintenance and repair, 10% to OPEB, and 10% to reduce taxes. And then the only other part of that is you start to get tricky because like if we fully fund capital, what do you do with that 10%? And what I laid out here, and it's just, again, just a working document, would be you would go back through the goals 3 through 7. So the first thing is you get to your general stabilization to 10%. So if any of the other ones are full, go to general stabilization. Once general stabilization is 10%, you'd go down, go to capital, go to circuit breaker, then go to roads, then go to OPEB. And then once we get through 1 through 7 are fully done,
Yep.
then we review the whole thing because then we're in a whole different sphere and we're in a great financial picture. OPEB is going to be fully funded at that point. So it's not like it's something that's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
But this kind of balances out, taking some of that reserve and decreasing the tax levy with it. I think that we're in a better position. We're not perfect. We're not financially secure yet. But as a town, I think to have that focus of giving a little bit back, hopefully we're going to get some tax title money. So this will be able to divert a little bit of that tax title to decreasing those taxes. Don't forget, for all of the prior years, when we didn't collect those and we had negative free cash, we had to raise taxes. So, people were paying more than their fair share. So this is trying to give back as we're actually collecting that just a little bit back to balance things out. Again, it's just a working document. It's in our handout section of FY17. It's proposed FY17 updated free cash policy. Just a proposal at this point, something we'll probably take up in the next couple of weeks after this town meeting and finalize so that we'll be clear going forward. We don't want to put it off until we get our free cash number and then all of a sudden we're scrambling to try to figure out what the policy is. Any questions or thoughts after hearing that the first time?
Just, I think the timing is good because we're also going to get we had our DOR, local services technical visit. They're putting a report together, right? We haven't heard back yet, but one of is policy recommendations there, and that's one of them. And that's also part of our community compact that was signed last Wednesday by the Lieutenant Governor. So it's a good timing for all of that.
Mm-hmm. Anything else for tonight we need to take up? Hold on, we need to take up our meeting schedule, so hold on.
We have one for Wednesday.
We have one for Wednesday, and why don't we take a look and book up through, I don't know if we can do the rest of the year, maybe. The rest of the fiscal year, yeah. Not the calendar year. So we usually like to, after town meeting, we take a little break, get a couple weeks off, come back the first Monday in June. That's June 6th.
When's the last day we can transfer money?
The last day we can transfer money is a Friday this year, 15th.
15th.
Which,
15th of July.
15th of July. Which really, 14th probably is the last we can do it, because Cindy has to record it on the
So, I don't
We
know,
meet on
on
July
Monday, so,
11th, we meet on July 11th then.
11th.
Well, no, typically,
No, I'm not saying anything
we
between, I'm
can-
saying the last meeting has to be July 11th.
if we can meet June 27th, so if we meet June 6th, take 3 weeks off, meet June 27th,
Yep,
And then July 11th.
and then July 14th, the last day that we can.
July 14th on
July
the
14th,
Thursday.
which is a Thursday, we keep it as, if there's nothing else on the agenda, if nothing's needed, we don't come. The only thing on the agenda that night is end of year transfers.
Fine,
It's a thought of the
but
committee.
July 11th, just as our usual Monday, do you think we'd be able to wrap everything up on July 11th and then have that 14th as our last emergency? I'm just throwing out a suggestion.
Yeah, we'll try. Yeah,
I don't know.
well, Cindy won't be here, but
I won't be here.
She won't be
I'm
here,
fine with
and that's my
14th,
only
yeah.
concern is that
Okay.
you're ending
it
the,
should be good.
I don't,
Well, we'll see.
yeah, I mean, we try, we,
You can also put one on, I would put on for the, you said 6/27.
Well, it
One of
could-
the 11th and the 14th, you can also cancel the 11th as well, if you want to wait till the
Yeah.
14th. You can get a gauge, say, oh, they're not going to be ready on the 11th, or they'll be all ready on the 11th, we can all done on the 11th, we
See
can do
what we
that.
have. That's
Yeah.
all right.
all. We'll see where we are.
So does that work for the committee? So if we book June 6th,
Yeah.
June 27th, July 11th, and July 14th, and obviously we'll be in communication about the July meetings if we if we can cancel or not.
And, I know we're on your thought, when is the term up, was ever up this year?
July 15th.
July 15th.
Yeah, and the people that are up,
Is that for us?
People are up.
Paul, Mike, Susan, and Paul.
And they're all back, so I won't worry about that.
Yeah.
I've already decided for them.
so obviously,
We just voted them in now.
well, you would have to get reappointed by the town moderator. But so,
I'm gonna send him a note.
yeah, I mean, well, you can think about it the next,
It's kind of early, actually. I was just thinking.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
actually.
it's nice 'cause we see him on Wednesday.
Because it changed, it used to be different.
typically we'll see him on Wednesday.
I'm saying,
And
Wednesday
if the
can
three are up and the
reappoint
three
everybody.
have said, I want to be reappointed,
You can do it Wednesday.
then we can communicate that, and then it's an easy.
You can do it Wednesday, then go get sworn in at the same time?
Well, he has to submit the letter, and I think you have to wait till July 15th to get re-sworn in, because that's your new
Well, if you
term.
send him a letter now, you can have the letter ready for this.
July 15th.
Get everything done at town meeting?
Any other questions? Yes.
Just a couple of logistical things. So the budget that you sent to Cindy and I last week is still the one for reproduction?
Yes.
correct? And what about your report? Do you have a report that also has to be reproduced?
That was, I would say no. So our report in its entirety is, 12, 13 pages, color, nice. I don't think you need to print that in color. I think that on the top of our recommendation page, we direct people to the Town of Holbrook website, which has our report on it.
Okay.
The only thing I would say is, do we want to request that our letter be published? Maybe, which would just be black and white, save on ink.
Just the first couple of pages.
Just the first page, our message of what's going on with it.
Yeah.
And then we say, hey, there's all the charts and stuff.
So what I'm doing is, I'm gonna see how this works out, but my plan is to just have a town meeting packet
Yep.
that has, everything in it. I'm wondering if I keep the budget separate, just because maybe that's the one thing that you might want to be looking at, the capital plan and the budget, I don't know. But in that, right now, I have, the first thing is your recommendations, this sheet.
Which will be updated tonight, I'll get it.
Yeah, and then I have wage and salary schedule, capital improvement plan, and then I got the Board of Selectmen report, which is an excerpt from the town report. The town report will be put on the webpage before town meeting, might be an hour before town meeting. I'm just crunching through it.
Doing the best you can at the moment.
Yeah, and, but the selectmen have a two-page, how are things going in the town kind of thing. So that'll be in this packet, and I could put
Same type of thing.
yours in
Onto
the
our
packet
message. You
too.
know what I could do is I'll take our message, because the second page has some other stuff, and I'll give you just the message, which is what's a page and a half.
Okay.
So that way you can have our recommendations and our page and a half behind it, and the budget, however you want to.
And then when people come into town meeting, they'll get a copy of the budget, and they'll get their additional material packet, which will have everything in
Everything
it.
in it. Works for me. Works for the committee?
Works for me.
And the only other thing I had is, so Wednesday night, Peter Brown's coming. He is gonna come early. If you guys have any questions, he'll be around the tables, and, this has to do with both the receivership and the chapter 40, section 58 articles. And also, Beth will be coming, the new town accountant. And, so I'll bring her around and introduce her to you folks. It's usually kinda hectic right before, but.
That seemed pretty.
There's not much,
Yeah.
there's not much for us, so.
Okay.
Those are the issues. The only thing we might vote on is the $2,000.
Yeah, that's-
Well, that $2,000 and the $33,000. Those are the only two outstanding
Yeah, that.
issues that we would take up as votes.
Oh, and I won't put the motion in there. I'll keep that needs to go to, I guess I'll talk to the moderator. I know he has a format. Do you have the format he likes his motions in for amendments?
That's Jeannie, I thought.
You can,
Jean has that?
yeah, you can ask Jeannie, you can just print it, it just has to be written.
I'm gonna have it ready for him, so
So,
that,
you can print it off a Word. That's what I did last year, was option A, option B, option C.
and if I pull this together tomorrow, could I send it to you just for a QC?
All right, anything else for tonight?
No?
No? All right, is there a motion?
Time is that meeting on
So,
Sunday?
we're posted for 6:30 on Wednesday.
Thank you. Seconded.
There's already been a motion in a second.
Any discussion? Okay, can we make,
Can you withdraw
I
your motion?
withdraw my motion
All
for
right, good.
Second.
It was never made.
That's at the school then, right? At the school over there,
At
right?
the school. Yep,
Okay.
right next door in the cafeteria. We'll sit down like little
What
kids at one of
minutes
the
are we
tables
doing?
with our knees in our chest and.
Okay.
motion to approve the minutes of the
Of the May 2nd
May
meeting.
2nd meeting.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of that?
Good, we good.
Any other minutes? We have to go through the minutes of the prior meeting too.
We have one before that, didn't we? No, we need the one before it.
April 25.
Motion to approve the April 25th meeting.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Nobody wants to talk to Steve Hook?
No.
Steve Hook's here.
I haven't talked to Steve Hook more than I've talked to anybody in this
Motion
town.
for Steve to come to the podium.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
We good.
Thank you.
Have a nice night.
You didn't have anything for us, right?